Good afternoon. I am Laura Bartlett and am the presiding vice chair of the North Carolina Board of Nursing. This emergency called meeting will now convene. This meeting is being held virtually via Microsoft Teams and is being recorded for record purposes. During discussion or to ask questions in this virtual meeting, committee members should identify themselves by name before addressing the matter. Moderator Catherine Soderberg will now conduct an official roll call for the declaration of a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Bartlett. Please respond present when your name is called. Dr. Edna Ennis.
Present.
Arlene Imes.
Present.
And Dr. Raquel Ingram.
Present.
Andrea Jepson. Dr. Brooke Kistler.
Present.
Diane Layden.
Present.
Sandra Lewis. Tom Minowitz.
Present.
Dr. Carmen Shaw. Dr. Amy Steele.
Present.
Cheryl Wheeler. Karen York.
Present.
Dr. LaDonna Thomas.
Present.
And Dr. Laura Bartlett. Dr. Laura Bartlett.
Present.
Thank you, Dr. Bartlett. We have a quorum for this called meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Soderberg. Committee members are reminded they are to abide by the State Ethics Act and the Code of Conduct to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. Any committee member should identify yourself and the conflict or appearance of conflict and refrain from any undue participation in this particular matter. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. Voting will be conducted by roll call. Following discussion, I will call for a motion. Picking up where I left off, I will call for a motion and a second prior to a roll call vote of all joint subcommittee members. When making a motion, the joint subcommittee members shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. An official vote on the motion before the committee will take place by roll call at the conclusion of the discussion. Are there any questions regarding the review of Robert's Rules of Order? Having heard no questions, the purpose of this emergency call meeting is to discuss the recommendation of the Joint Subcommittee to the Board of Nursing issued by the Joint Subcommittee yesterday in response to the declared state of emergency and the Governor's Executive Order 318. Board members appointed to the Joint Subcommittee who were in attendance at yesterday's meeting were Dr. Amy Steele, Dr. LaDonna Thomas, and Dr. Raquel Ingram. At this time, I will invite Dr. Steele to present the Joint Subcommittee's recommendation to the board.
Thank you, Dr. Bartlett. The issue presented before the Joint Subcommittee is as follows. The North Carolina Board of Nursing is to consider the Joint Subcommittee's recommendation to waive certain requirements for nurse practitioners during the declared state of emergency affecting Western North Carolina. The background is as follows. On October 5th, 2024, Governor Roy Cooper issued Executive Order 318 declaring a state of emergency following the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina. In this order, the governor recognized the impact to the healthcare systems in this part of the state and the need for expanding the capacity of the healthcare providers to this region. Governor Cooper ordered professional healthcare licensure boards to waive or modify legal and regulatory constraints to address specifically those providers not licensed in North Carolina, but licensed elsewhere, and providers who hold inactive or retired licenses to provide care. On October 9th, 2024, during an emergency called meeting, the Joint Service Subcommittee, comprised of members of the North Carolina Board of Nursing and the North Carolina Medical Board, voted to waive certain requirements for nurse practitioners practicing in Western North Carolina in direct response to Executive Order 318. For a limited period of time through December 31st, 2024, the Joint Subcommittee recommends waiving the requirement for a supervising physician for those eligible nurse practitioners practicing in the named affected counties in Western North Carolina. This emergency meeting of the North Carolina Board of Nursing is called, as was mentioned, to present the Joint Subcommittee's recommendation for a vote by the North Carolina Board of Nursing. A copy of the draft temporary emergency waivers are attached to the packet, along with a summary of the waive provisions below. I will read each of the 6 provisions one at a time so that we can have the vote, Madam Vice Chair, if that's permissible to you. The first recommendation or proposed waiver is Rule 0804, approval to practice. The proposed waiver says we waive the provisions in 0804A, 4, B, D, E2, F, L, I, and J, so that a nurse practitioner may apply for an approval to practice without a supervising physician in the above-named counties during the declared state of emergency. The refresher program is waived for nurse practitioners out of practice for less than 5 years and still hold a current national certification. Madam Vice Chair.
Is there a motion?
This is Arlene. Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Arlene.
This is Arlene Imes. I make a motion that we accept.
And this is Diane Layden. I second.
Okay. Arlene Imes has made a motion to accept the motion, and Diane Layden has seconded the motion. Now that we have a second, I will call for a vote. When your name is called, please respond approve if you are in favor of the motion or opposed if you are not in favor of the motion. Dr. Edna Ennis.
Approve.
Arlene Imes.
Approved.
Dr. Raquel Ingram.
Approved.
Andrea Jepson. Dr. Brooke Kissler.
Approved.
Diane Layden.
Approved.
Sandra Lewis. Tom Minowitz.
Approve.
Dr. Carmen Shaw. Dr. Amy Steele.
Approved.
Cheryl Wheeler. Karen York.
Approved.
Dr. LaDonna Thomas.
Approved.
At this point, I would like to ask Dr. Sarah Griffith, Chief Nursing Officer for the board, to provide an update on additional waivers that have been executed in response to Executive Order 318.
Madam Vice Chair, I do have 5 additional proposals to read.
Oh, beg your pardon. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
No problem. I will ask if it pleases the committee, I'm happy to read all 5 or continue with them individually. What is your pleasure, Madam Vice Chair?
Let's read all 5.
Okay.
And then
I will
proceed.
read all 5. And yes, ma'am. 0808, inactive status. Waive the provisions of 0808C and D so that a nurse practitioner may apply for an approval to practice without a supervising physician in the above named counties during the declared state of emergency The refresher seems very similar to the other, but it is not. The refresher program is waived for nurse practitioners out of practice for less than 5 years who still hold a current national certification. The next proposed waiver, 0809 prescribing authority. Waive the provisions in 0809 B, L, portions, B1, portions of B2, B2C, B3, and a portion of C during the declared state of emergency, such that a nurse practitioner practicing in the above named counties may write prescriptions without collaborative practice agreement with a supervising physician. 0810 Quality Assurance Standards for Collaborative Practice Agreement. Waive Rule 0810 requiring quality improvement processes pursuant to a collaborative practice agreement between the nurse practitioner practicing in the above named counties during the declared state of emergency and a supervising physician. 0814 Fees. Waive the provisions in 0813A regarding the application fee for an emergency approval to practice, allowing a nurse practitioner the ability to practice in the above named counties without paying an application fee during the declared state of emergency. And finally, 0814, practicing during a disaster. Waive the provisions requiring a supervising physician in a portion of 0814A, B, and C for nurse practitioners practicing in the above named counties during the declared state of emergency. Nurse practitioners seeking to practice in the above named counties without a supervising physician must submit an application to the Board of Nursing. Madam Chair, those conclude the 5 additional proposed waivers.
Okay, I had to turn my mic back on. I'm so sorry. So, is there a motion to accept the 5 proposals as presented by Dr. Amy Steele?
This is LaDonna, so moved.
Okay, LaDonna Thomas has made a motion to accept the 5 proposals. Do I have a second?
Yes,
Second.
you do. This is Edna. I second it.
Edna Ennis has seconded the motion. Now that we have a second, I will call for a vote. When your name is called, please respond approve if you are in favor of the motion or opposed if you are not in favor of the motion. Dr. Edna Ennis,
Approve.
Arlene Imes,
Approved.
Dr. Raquel Ingram,
Approved.
Andrea Jepson, Dr. Brooke Kiesler,
Approved.
Diane Layden,
Approved.
Sandra Lewis, Tom Minowitz,
Approve.
Dr. Carmen Shaw, Dr. Amy Steele,
Approved.
Cheryl Wheeler, Karen York,
Approve.
Dr. LaDonna Thomas,
Approved.
and I, Dr. Laura Bartlett, approve. The motion passes. At this point, I would like to ask Dr. Sarah Griffith, Chief Nursing Officer for the board, to provide an update on additional waivers that have been executed in response to Executive Order 318.
Dr.
Thank you,
Bartlett,
Madam
looks
Chair.
like
And I see Meredith Pierce's hand is raised.
I'm
If
sorry.
she may need to address something.
Okay.
Thank
Meredith.
you. Thank you, Dr. Bartlett. Just for purposes of the record, I wanted to be clear that the earlier motion that the board voted on Rule 0804, approval to practice, to waive the provisions in the approval to practice as read by Dr. Steele in 0804 A4, B, D, E2, F1, I, and J were waived by the full board. If you could clarify that, yes, they were, that motion passed and the vote was taken.
I'm sorry, I got disconnected there for a moment. Did I miss anything?
That's okay. I was just asking Dr. Bartlett if you could call for the vote again on 0804 to confirm whether the motion passed or failed in 0804.
Okay, so, do I need to do the motion and second again? Okay,
Dr. Steele is saying yes, so let's go ahead and do it
Okay.
again.
okay. Is there a motion to accept, proposal 0804?
Dr. Bartlett, this is Karen York. I approve the motion.
Okay, Karen York has made a motion to approve 0804. Do I have a second?
Dr. Bartlett, this is Diane Layden. I second.
Okay, I heard Diane Layden has seconded the motion. Now that we have a second, I will call for a vote on 0804. When your name is called, please respond approve if you are in favor of the motion or oppose if you are not in favor of the motion. Dr. Edna Ennis,
Approve.
Arlene Imes,
Approved.
Dr. Raquel Ingram,
Approved.
Andrea Jepson, Dr. Brooke Kiesler,
Approve.
Diane Layden,
Approved.
Sandra Lewis, Tom Minowitz,
Approve.
Dr. Carmen Shaw, Dr. Amy Steele,
Approved.
Cheryl Wheeler, Karen York,
Approve.
Dr. LaDonna Thomas,
Approved.
Dr. Laura Bartlett, myself, approves, and the motion passes. Ms. Paris should we progress on to Ms. Griffith?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Dr. Bartlett. So I would just like to start with stating how impressive it is that all of you were able to get on this call to address the issues from the Joint Subcommittee in such a fast manner. It is a true testament of the North Carolina Board of Nursing meeting our mission of public protection. So I'm going to provide a quick overview of some other waivers that we have implemented. So specifically in the Nursing Practice Act under General Statute 90-171.49, it gives the board the authority to waive requirements for RNs and LPNs. We have waived 3 different items. We have waived reinstatement of inactive and retired RNs and LPNs. We've waived temporary reinstatement of expired licenses, and we've temporarily waived the licensure by endorsement requirements. Individuals wishing to practice in Western North Carolina are still required to submit an application, have an unencumbered license, be mentally and physically able to competently provide nursing care, and have no pending criminal cases. The complete waivers are on our website in the section dedicated to information on Hurricane Helene. Additionally, we are actively working on waivers for pre-licensure nursing education programs to provide some relief for those requirements as well. And we will be sharing that information with the programs that are affected in Western North Carolina and continue to support those programs as they work to educate our students through graduation. My last update that I'd like to provide is the North Carolina Board of Nursing was asked by DHHS, their READY-OP process, to verify RN, LPN, and advanced practice nurses licenses in North Carolina and from other jurisdictions. I would like to acknowledge some staff that stepped up to the plate to verify between 2,000 to 3,000 licensees. And those include Jenny Davis, Brad, Jeff, Angela, Chris, and Jennifer Pelletier and Melissa McDonald. Without their efforts coming together to verify these individuals that they do have an active unencumbered license in their jurisdiction, this will provide the access to care for our individuals in Western North Carolina. So I wanted to give them a big kudos for accomplishing that. That is all my updates, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide these updates today.
Thank you, Dr. Griffith. Thank you for your attendance and participation in this emergency called meeting of the North Carolina Board of Nursing. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Madam Chair, this is Tom Minowitz. I so moved.
Tom Minowitz has made a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
This is Arlene Imes. I second.
Arlene Imes has seconded the motion. All in favor of adjournment, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Thank you. This concludes today's emergency called meeting of the North Carolina Board of Nursing.